Hi guys, I'm Jim and this is Jim's Fix-It Shop, and today we're going to go over the drive disc. I have had a lot of emails and questions on this drive disc. I've had like 3 in the last couple of days. One guy was trying to adjust his and it was froze to the crank, and I think he said he broke it trying to adjust it, so now he's got to replace it, but he can't get it off the crank. I've had another one where he ran over something and damaged it, and he had to replace it. But we took a shortcut with him. He had a spare one already, a used one off another machine he stripped, and I told him a simple way to change this without taking it off the crank. Another one, I don't remember what the third one was today. I have too many emails to keep up. But we're going to show you how to change this. And I've got a paper over here. Let me grab it. Okay, this is a picture of your drive disc assembly and how it comes apart. I can't remember his name, but unless you can pull your fender off and then pull off your clutch disc, take that big nut out of the center, a couple of washers, and pull the clutch disc assembly off. The whole thing, not just the clutch. Set that aside. Then if you shift it over in 5th gear, you can get this aluminum flywheel off of here without pulling the engine. What you want to do is take these 6 bolts out and turn this. This assembly comes unscrewed. Here's the hub that goes up on the crank with the 2 set screws. Then you have the pulley. That'll slide off. This aluminum disc screws on. It's right-hand thread. So if you take this and turn it and get it out of your way so you can slip in here with, I use a piece of oak. And on the back side of here are ribs. You go up against one of them ribs and you wrap it with a steel hammer and shock it. It'll break loose and you can just unscrew this off of the hub and leave the hub on the crank. And that's what he did. And he took his other one apart. He screwed the disc back on. He was back in business. Put the 6 bolts back in and you're done. It's just that simple. But you should be able to sneak this off if you take your clutch your clutch assembly off and then let your clutch go down, and that should slip out of there. If not, if you have to get that off to replace it for some reason, the simplest way is just pull the engine off. I have one sitting over here and I'm going to show you how it comes apart. Let me spin the camera around. Okay, here's a 10 horse I got off one of my machines. I parted out. It still has the drive hub assembly on it, and it's supposed to have set screws in it, but whoever fixed this one, they took the set screws out and just put regular cap head screws in it, and the heads are sticking out, but I guess it don't really matter. It's not like it's going to catch anything. Well, let me show you how to get this thing off if it's froze on your engine. Some of this stuff out of my way. I lay the engine down. You put your block of wood in here and you hit it with a hammer. This one's loose. This will unscrew. That comes off. Then your pulley will come off. Now, if you're going to interchange these, make sure your pulley is the right size. There's two different size pulleys. I think that sheet said there's a 4-inch and there's a 5-inch, depending on how big your machine is. Now this hub, this one I can get off. But if you got one that's froze up, you can't get it off, you can cut them off. Now you want to be careful cutting these off. What I usually do, you take the set screws out. Now see, he had these big cap screws in here. I guess he wanted to really tighten them up. Now the hub is pretty thick on the diameter of it, but there's a thin spot. If I can get this off of here. Now you can see the end of the hub. The thinnest spot is where the key is. That's where you want to cut it. You got this on your crank. Now as you're cutting this, I've used a Dremel before with a cut-off wheel. What I use now is I have an right angle air die grinder with a thin blade. You want to use the thinnest blades you can find because they'll create less heat, and of course they're going to cut faster. And you can use a electric 4-inch die grinder with a cutoff blade in it. But as you're cutting this, you want to keep track of how hot this is getting. There is a rubber lip seal up in this bottom of this engine that keeps your engine oil in. If you get this crank too hot, you could melt that, and now your engine oil is going to leak out all the time on you. So what you want to do is cut right down that keyway. If you happen to cut too deep, you're just going to cut the key and you're still not going to hurt the crank. If you turn this and you cut it someplace else, you're going to be gouging into the crankshaft, and you don't really want to do that. So try to line it up so you cut right down where the key is, and that's your thinnest spot to cut it anyway. Now if you have any other questions on this, let me know. Subscribe to my channel. I've got videos on repairing just about anything that's wrong with this. The last one I got, a guy from, I think it was Minnesota, couldn't get his wheel hubs off that your rim bolts to. He says, I finally got so frustrated I took a die grinder and just ground it in half. I have a video that shows you how to cut them. You wedge a screwdriver in both sides in the cuts and you slide it off. Then if you cut it right, you can put it back on, put the bolt through it, and you can reuse the same hub without buying a new one. So check these videos out before you grind away and cut something that you don't really have to. Now I do have let me slide this thing out of here. Okay, now I got that out of the way. I store these engines when I don't have a need for them at the time. I use a piece of 2x10 and I put another piece on top of it. I drill the crank diameter through all the way through the first piece and at least 3/4 of the way through the second piece, and I screw them together. You drop the engine down in that hole and it makes a perfect stand. I can throw it on the shelf out in the old garage until I need the engine. But something I want to share with you guys, I had Frank from Minnesota ask me a couple of questions, and he says, also, I have a copy of the Series 14 Snapper, let me get this a little closer, Snapper parts manual, for all these different models. Now, I don't have the number 14, I have 23. Which got me thinking, if any of you guys out there have a parts manual like this one, it shows all the different schematics, part breakdowns, all the different part numbers and descriptions. This is wonderful. It's like a 60-page. I don't know how he did it. I don't know if he took pictures of every single page. I guess I'm going to have to email him and ask him how he did this. But Frank, I want to tell you thank you very much. This is going to help a lot of other people with the questions they send me, because I'm not really familiar with every model Snapper's ever built. I primarily work on these models that I've got this model built for, and they're all basically the same, but there's a few different variations and parts that they have in them, which sometimes I don't know. I have to look up things before I can answer these questions. So if you got one of these part manuals and you'd like to share it, send it to me somehow. I don't know if you have to take a picture of every page, but I would really appreciate it. And I'm sure there's a lot of people out there with questions that would appreciate the answers that I could find in these manuals. So again, Frank, thanks a lot. I really appreciate it. And if you need anything fixed, I'm not strictly Snapper repair person. I've never worked for Snapper. I probably never will work for Snapper, but I just enjoy working on mine, excuse me, and keeping it running. I guess I just like to see how long I can keep something working. My snowblower I bought 37 years ago still has the original engine and most of the original parts. And I still use it every winter. I just like tinkering with stuff, I guess. So if you got any needs for anything to be repaired, send me an email, and if I can, I'll certainly help you out. I guess until next time, don't forget to subscribe. That way you can find all the videos on Snappers covering all these different issues that you guys have had. And believe me, there's a lot of emails I've answered. I'm pushing, I don't know, 560, 570 emails. I get probably 20 to 25 a day. They're really coming in. So, and another thing Frank says, I hate to bother you. It's not a bother. Send that email. If you got a question, answer it. And I'll do the best I can. If you have a question, answer it. Ask it. Good Lord. And I'll do the best I can on answering it. So until next time, I guess, work safe, have fun, and get out there and mow that yard. Talk to you soon.